Hello and welcome to the Etch Play weekly live show, episode 61, would you believe it? It is the 11th of November and I'm your host today. My name is Adam Burt. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate your time. And I'm joined by Alex Boucher. Say hello, Alex.
Hello, Alex. How's it going, Adam? You're right.
I'm good. I just thought I'd introduce you now before I do the schedule. Otherwise, you've got to sit there awkwardly while I talk about those other things. But it's good to have you here.
Yeah, that's totally fine. Yeah, likewise. Yeah, good to be here.
So coming up on today's show, the aforementioned Alex Boucher. Here he is. Will be talking to us all about games industry events, the return of events, how the lay of the land, what to look forward to, how to run events, which will be good. And then later on, we're going to be playing Forza Horizon 5. That's me and Dan Thomas checking out one of the biggest games of the year. Great racing game, so stick around for the gameplay footage of that. And then later on, we've got Taya, Beely and Nina joining the show to talk all about the latest games industry news with me. Alex, are you ready to have our chat?
I am ready. I'm poised. Let's do this.
Cool. So Alex, for those of you who don't know, is the owner of the Analog BizDev consultancy. He's the founder of Game Dev Heroes, which is a great grassroots award ceremony that celebrates game developers, designers, animators, all sorts of people from the games industry at the ground level. And he's just a great thrower of events and parties as well. He hosts lots of events, and we thought, who better to talk to about events than Alex Boucher? Alex, how are you doing?
I am well, and yeah, I'm up for talking about events actually, because it feels like we're slowly, tentatively getting back to some sort of normal. And as most people have seen, there's been a few recently, like Develop Conference and IRL, and there's a few slated. So it's a good time to be thinking about how we're feeling about events going forwards, but how things might somehow change, or for the better or worse as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, I got to bump into you at Develop, which was in person, and that was very nice. But obviously still slightly unusual to a degree, like it wasn't full capacity at everything. It was still, some kind of stuff was still, unclear. Some people still not entirely comfortable. But I think I get one of the first things I wanted to ask you was really just about why events are so important in the first place. What does a healthy event scene bring to the industry? Like, why is it so important for games that we have events, that we have these scenes and community?
Yeah, I think it goes across any industry really, in that we're social creatures. We are tribal. We want to be together in the same room. We want to feed off each other and just and connect and that. But with any industry, and also with conferences themselves, it's all about discoverability and collaboration, right? I kind of compare it to a gig where you go along and you've got a ticket for the main event, but you're not really sure who the support bands are. And then they come on stage and blow you away. And you're like, oh my God, I've just discovered something amazing. And I think it's the same with, interacting with people at conferences, people you don't know that well or introduce you that you meet in the break for coffee. There's just so many good benefits to a good conference when everyone's in the mood for networking and in the mood for chatting. And I think that's what makes an industry healthy, when you've got a good number of events where people can do that and go somewhere and network.
And people put a lot of stock into, and I totally get why, that this idea of like the value of corridor chats, that's separate to like really formalized meetings, just bumping into somebody and having a conversation when you're walking from one talk to another, or walking from one bar to another in some cases. How you're able to, in some cases, do deals with massive ramifications, or at least build relationships with clients and with developers you might want to work with, and all those sorts of things.
Yeah, it's that impromptu thing. I've heard stories of a lot of people spending a lot of money to go to GDC or Gamescom and having 20 back-to-back meetings, and then they meet someone at the airport who's just come from the conference, and they have this really deep conversation, and end up that becomes the biggest reason that their conference worked, because something happens afterwards and it justifies the whole trip. So you can't just sort of rely on the stuff you've got scheduled for at your diary. It is that impromptu kind of meeting that you get at some point whilst you're there.
I'll do some shout outs to the chat. We've got hello to Peter. We've got hello to Long Steve. Steve, it's good to see you. Hello to Miles as well. Thanks for tuning in, Miles. We appreciate it. The next thing I wanted to ask you, and we kind of touched on this a little bit, but I guess it would just be good to explore it a bit more formally, like it's obviously still really uncertain times for events in general. We've got some people who are still concerned about safety and the pandemic, but also just it's been a while since people have really socialized. You know, people are understandably nervous. What advice would you have to people who are maybe worried about the impact of the pandemic on events that we're having?
I mean, is this mainly for people who want to attend events, or is it for people who want to organise events?
I guess it's both. Like, it's, you know, anyone
Okay.
who wants to engage with events in general.
Yeah. Well, I would say to both, you know, if in doubt, don't. I mean, that's probably the main kind of takeaway you need to go with at the moment. If you've got anxieties, if you've got any kind of concerns whatsoever, just don't. I mean, life's too short. So I think if there's an event that you're really, really wanting to go to, but you're just thinking, you know what, the numbers aren't great, you know, there's people I want to protect, don't go along. And I think it's the same to be said for people who organise it. You know, I mean, it's just you've got to mitigate. You've got to have enough stuff in place to make people feel safe that they're going along. But it's really hard to police that. You know, again, it's a bit of both, where you want people to come to your event, but how are you going to make sure that there's not a massive fallout a week later where everyone's, you know, gotten ill, really? And you know, that's why the digital event has kind of come to the fore a bit more, where it's actually more accessible for a lot of people, and you know, it's not going to disrupt your day where you're getting up at stupid o'clock to get a train somewhere. You can literally log in and watch, but it obviously takes away that social interaction, the impromptu stuff side of it. So I would say for anyone attending events, you've just got to look at it at that basic level. It's like, do I need to go to this event? Should I go to this event? What am I going to miss? Do I need it? Do I need this? You know, and the same goes for event organisers. I mean, obviously, their lives have been disrupted. Their businesses have been disrupted, so they're desperate to bring it back as soon as possible. But like I said, they've got to do it in a safe way that manages expectations. You know, it's all about that, really. You know, because you have, on the one hand, a really good, successful conference like Develop, where, touch wood, I've not really heard a lot of people say that they were really ill. But on the other side, you've got, you know, a consumer event. That being said, but EGX, you know, happening, but not having the same sort of EGX that you normally would expect, and a lot of people having slight issues with that, going, well, you know, I've come all the way down from Warrington for this, you know, 2-day ticket, and you know, there's enough here for about 90 minutes. So I think, like I said, it's managing expectations.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And I guess everyone's always got to weigh up the risk versus the reward, haven't they? Of like, how much do you want to go, and how do you feel about the current climate in terms of illnesses? And I'm the same actually with Develop. I haven't heard anyone that I know of getting COVID specifically. I think there have been a few people who have got almost like the Develop version of fresh as flu, maybe. But luckily nothing too serious.
Yeah, and you know, yeah.
So what about events that we're looking forward to then? Like, obviously there's starting to be a bit more of a calendar now. We're starting to see some events announce new dates. They're maybe a bit optimistic about 2022. Looking ahead, like you say, their business relies on it. They've got to try and get an event out there. But there's definitely some starting to fill the calendar up now. What events are you looking forward to? And you can include your own if you want to, but also just generally.
Yeah, personally, for me, GDC is always a highlight of the year. You know, it's a chance to get over to the US and connect with a lot of people on that side. But the event itself is just always so busy. So there's just a lot more opportunities where you can meet with companies you wouldn't normally get to see or engage with. So that's an event that I've always, you know, been keen to go. It's one of those essential events, if you can afford it, on a yearly basis that you'd go to. For myself, I mean, there's a few that I'm working on actually for next year that it's a bit too early to tell you about, but watch this space. But Game Dev Heroes obviously is another personal highlight, in that, you know, we created it, we made it happen, and each year we managed to get it over the line, and people come down, and just the the general vibe and atmosphere in the room for that event in particular is always extremely wholesome and lovely. So that's just one that I always have a soft spot for as well, obviously.
Yeah, and that's annual, so we can expect Game Dev Heroes to be again next winter or next autumn, that kind of time frame.
Yeah, I mean, we normally do it around the same time as the Develop Conference, just to sort of ensure that most of the finalists are in the same sort of town.
So it might be summer this year.
Yeah. I think if Develop Conference goes back to its normal fixture of July, then expect a Game Dev Heroes on the first evening of Develop in July 2022. So yeah, heard it here first.
Exclusive news.
Yeah,
that sounds good. I can't wait. We mentioned a bit earlier, like, you know, is this segment good for people who want to run events, and I would like it to be good for those people. Do you have any advice for someone out there who's maybe looking to start their own meetup or event? Like, how do you get started with that sort of thing?
Yeah, there's two things really. A is find the need. You know, does an event need to happen for something? You know, it's normally a hot topic, or maybe you've found a niche where no one's really talking about that thing in an event. So maybe we should set that up. But I would always start small. You know, just find a pub, just start it in a pub. Don't go big and don't think, right, this is amazing, we're going to have a massive NFT conference and we'll get a 1,500 capacity venue and it'll be amazing. You know, I think always try and start small with it. That's what we did with Game Dev Heroes first year. We were just in an extremely hot room above a pub. And luckily since then it has grown and grown. But yeah, that's because we found the need. We found that there weren't many award ceremonies out there that recognise people or just unsung talent in the games industry, and it kind of resonated. So yeah, that would be my advice. Don't go overboard with it unless you've got Intel giving you thousands of pounds for it. Just try and find that, you know, find what the audience would be, because it's great if you want to think about, well, it'd be really good if we had an event around audio. But who's it going to benefit? Who's actually going to go along to this thing and go, actually, this is really useful for me? You know, so you've really got to think about those few elements, I would say.
Yeah, that's good advice. Hello in the chat to Gaspode and Dan Thomas, who you'll be seeing shortly, watching me play Forza. Last question, then, Alex. This is your chance to pontificate about the future of events. What do you think the future of events looks like for the games industry? Like, do you think they're going to go back to lots of in-person events? Do you think digital's going to stick around?
It's a great question, Adam. I think it's going to be a bit of both, because people will be starting to see how their last couple of years have been without events. They'll be able to see what the impact has been on their business. You know, a year without Gamescom and E3 and GDC, they'll actually look at the numbers in terms of the business they got and how they operated, and they'll start to realise if they needed it or not. I think they'll just go, well, actually, nothing really changed for me. It wasn't feast or famine. I didn't rely on GDC, and my business didn't suffer because of it. So I think on the event side of things, you'll see this kind of survival of the fittest, shall we say, where certain events that are still deemed essential will carry on, and a few that were kind of always on the sort of periphery, where it's like, well, it was nice to go to that one, or that was a bit of a jolly, but I think it was fun. You know, those types of events may well suffer and fall by the wayside. Yeah. And obviously, talking earlier about accessibility, you know, a lot of people are happy that there's more digital events now than there were before, because they can actually network in some way or attend something and watch talks and panels, rather than getting on a train or finding a way to go to some big buzzy conference that, you know, is really bad for their mental well-being. So I think that's what we're going to see. But I would like personally to see a more sustainable outlook on events as well. I really want people to start making a difference on how they run events. You know, all that plastic for lanyards and flyers and single-use cups, you know, for me, I would love to put on an event that is 100% carbon neutral. You know, I'd love to have an event that just has no waste at all. And it would be great if people took that on board as well, and thought, well, you know, we can spend, you know, 100 quid on these pop-up banners, but do we need them really? You know, do we want to plaster every single space known to man with posters, or should we just go for the one? So I think it would be great if people had more of a focus on that side of it as well. from the personal front.
Yeah, that would be cool. And that's obviously a hot topic at the minute. Climate crisis is real. We need to address it, and then the events industry absolutely has to try and do their bit. That sounds really interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining me, Alex. I really appreciate your time.
Oh, no, you're welcome. It's been fun talking about events, actually.
Yes, it's always good to have you on the show. And
am I your first repeat guest, or have you had people on before?
I think you are the first repeat guest who isn't somebody that we directly works for us. Like, we've had people who technically are part of our network group who we technically pay. So they just I'm
honoured. I'm honoured.
Yeah, you are the lucky chosen one.
Excellent.
We are going to throw to our pre-recorded segment, which is me and Dan Thomas checking out this week's hottest new release, which is Forza Horizon 5. Stick around, because after this, Tyre will be here. We'll talk about all the latest game industry news, which you don't want to miss. And see you again shortly. Take care. Hello and welcome to the Etch Play video. I'm Adam Burt and I'm joined by driving expert Dan Thomas. Hello, Dan.
Hello, how are we doing, Adam?
I'm good, because we are going to Mexico. We are playing Forza Horizon 5. This is the just released sequel to the Forza Horizon series, available on Xbox Series X and S, and probably other Xboxes as well. I haven't actually checked that. And it's available on PC as well, which is nice. We're going to take a little look at the game, and you can already tell that it's a beautiful game. And yeah, we're going to show off some races, have a good time. How does that sound?
That sounds wonderful. I'd love to be taken to Mexico, so let's go.
Just a quick gander at the accessibility options there. The game has a lot of accessibility options, which I think we're really impressed by. It's always a good sign when studios do that, so thank you to Playground Games for putting those in. It's a wonderful initiative.
Well done, Playground.
This could get a little rough.
So here's one of the intro segments to the game. This is quite near the beginning. Hopefully not too many spoilers, but obviously seeing the game at all when you could be playing it is kind of a spoiler, so if you like the look of it, just go and play it. This is the jungle sequence at the beginning of the game. And, I mean, straight away, this game is just good looking.
This is a beautiful game, and you're straight into the action again, like in Forza 4. I remember you made a Horizon 4, you made a video about that. Good, straight into the action.
Yes, so this is near the beginning of the game. Basically, the plane that you'll see is a plane that flies around. It kind of drops you off straight into the middle of races near the beginning of the game, which is quite a fun little gimmick. We'll show off a bit more of that in a second as well, actually, probably. But yeah, I mean, Forza Horizon 4 did get a Series X upgrade. Already was a very good looking game, and somehow Forza Horizon 5 just takes all of that to the next level. If you have played Forza Horizon 4, you do know what you're getting into here. Like, structurally, very similar in terms of the way the game's put together, with the open world map, and you can go and drive around it to find events and races you want to participate in. And it's a driving line, and the way the driving feels is very familiar, so you'll be right at home if you played Forza Horizon before. But yeah, what a technical showcase it is for the Xbox Series X and PCs as well, who are well equipped to deal with it and show us some of this visual richness.
You're enjoying your Series X upgrade with this game.
Yeah, definitely. It's probably the game so far, I'd say, is the best example of what the Series X can do visually and performance-wise. Obviously, you at home, you're watching it on like a Twitch stream or a YouTube, which is, you know, compressed beyond belief. So hopefully it looks good for you as well, but in real life it looks pretty special.
And do you notice that in all aspects? Any issue with the load times or anything like that, or has it all been fairly fluid?
Load time's been good so far. They do exist. It's not loading free, and you will spot some, but it's yeah, it's very well optimized so far. So here's another segment, and this will show you what I was talking about with the plane. Like, it's going to drop me off mid-race, just for fun.
I mean, what better way to join a race than jumping out the back of an airplane?
Exactly.
That's how I do it.
So the last Forza Horizon 4 took place in the UK, like a condensed representation of the UK, and this one is Mexico, obviously. Mexico is very geographically diverse, which the game takes a lot of advantage of. So you see we've got these kind of desert-style environments. There's a volcano, there's the jungle we were just in, there's, you know, quaint little towns with, you know, nice Mexican vibes. I went way too far off the track there. Yeah, it's variety is definitely one of the strengths of the game as well, just in terms of the environments and also the race types that you're able to get into. Maybe we'll show off a different kind of event in a minute as well, rather than being all speed based.
So Adam, this game was extremely well received critically. A lot of hype. You were a little bit apprehensive because you loved Forza Horizon 4. Do you think this is living up to the hype?
I do. I think it's very much cut from that Forza Horizon 4 cloth. Forza Horizon 4 was a big step up from previous racing games that I had played, and this isn't as big of a step. Like, Forza Horizon 4 got so much right that a lot of it just rolls over and carries into this. But there are little improvements to the way things put together. I think so far at least, the events that I've played and the structure of those events feels a little bit more forgiving here, a little bit better structure. Forza Horizon 4 was really structured around earning enough to do a showcase event to move on between seasons, and this is a lot more almost freeform. I think notably actually in the story in this, so in Forza Horizon 4 you start as like just a guy who becomes a superstar through the events of the game. In this game you start as a superstar. They're like, your character's a legend, we love you, you can already do whatever you want. So there's not as much kind of gatekeeping, I guess, where it's like you have to earn your way to do certain things. In this, all the other characters just love you and they're like, come and race in my thing, please. Which is nice.
Please welcome our #1 superstar to Horizon Mexico. Hey, the cargo doors are opening. You want me to show
So here's one of those showcase races that I just mentioned. They are still in the game. Showcase races are events where, rather than racing against cars, they throw in other stuff. So here there's motorbikes being dropped out of a plane in front of me. And these races have a lot of rubber banding. It's quite obvious that the game is quite forgiving about making you feel cool. It has a rewind mechanic, which I will be using regularly because I am bad at driving. Yeah, let's just rewind that. Pretend that didn't happen. Come on.
So, for anybody who's not aware, rubber banding, what do you mean?
So if the enemies or the opponents get too far ahead, they kind of slow down and let you catch up. The events do it to different levels, and I think it depends on your difficulty level as well. I'm playing on normal here. If you turn the difficulty right down, it's extremely noticeable, but the cars ahead of you just basically stop when you stop. But in these kinds of events, it's a bit noticeable that, like, even if I was doing badly like I am, I'm hitting a lot of things, I hit the wall a couple of times. The motorbikes are still pretty close, so they're still catchable.
And that's a great mechanic. Like, it just keeps it fun, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like, you don't just want to be left for dead and just be driving around by yourself. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
I think one of the big things about Forza Horizon as a series, especially compared to Forza Motorsport, which is their more traditional simulation racing, Forza Horizon is only interested in making you feel cool. They don't really care about the sanctity of whether you deserve to win these events. They just care about whether you're having a good time, which is actually what I appreciate, because yeah, I'm not a good driver, although I took that corner very well. Were you impressed with that corner?
I was, until you nearly veered into the barrier just straight after.
Oh, that was still better than I would usually do.
An interesting release process. You had the kind of early access for special edition purchases. You're playing this on Game Pass, which is a day one Game Pass, is that right?
Yes, although I guess it kind of defeats the point of the words day one Game Pass if you can get it on a previous day by buying it. But yeah, it's essentially Game Pass at launch, I guess, is a way of putting it. That guy now has a wingsuit. Basically, they just love those Top Gear segments where cars race against things that aren't cars, and they're like, let's put those in the game all the time. I wonder if I won. Yeah, I did.
Yeah, you feel cool.
I do feel quite cool. I just beat a guy in a wingsuit.
Yeah, it is cool. It's a cool thing to, tell your mum. But yeah, I did see a stat. I think there was something like 800,000 people playing the game before the official release date. So clearly an effective strategy to have that kind of premium early access approach.
Yeah, definitely. So let's show off one of the events that's maybe not quite as racing-y as some of the other ones. This is quite a cool one near the start of the game. You'll notice now I'm in the open world, I'm just driving around doing my thing. Other players are also driving around in this world with me, which makes it feel quite alive, which is nice, and you will see the dust storm on the horizon, which is where we're going, because we're going to start the El Camino story. So there is still a speed element here, but I guess it's presented in a slightly different way. This storyline is about photographing aspects of the festival, and in this first one we're going to drive into the eye of the dust storm and take some photography of our car.
Asked for pictures of all the cars at the festival. It's called Horizon Promo, and obviously we want action shots, fast ones.
I can do fast. Let's go.
Great script racing.
For Horizon Promo, you just need to take a picture of your car, but it'll look
So yeah, there is a sort of like you can get more points for doing it quickly, but ultimately the goal here is not to beat other people in like a race or complete a lap. It's to go somewhere and do something cool. The dust storm is a great way to show off, some of the systems in the game. I haven't fully played enough to understand how the dust storms work. I don't know whether they are like random in some way. They seem to not always be in the same place. They seem to move around a little bit.
How do some of the multiplayer aspects work? So we've seen other people in the world with you, but there's also kind of the avatars and ghost representations of people.
Yes, so when you're driving around in free roam, it will just automatically try and drop other humans into your world and like group you together to make your world feel alive. If you want to, you can like do minimal chat with them with like some controls like beep at them, say hi and all that kind of stuff. You can form convoys with them if you hang out together and enter races together. Then there is a sort of separate multiplayer mode, which is deliberately I want to do races not in the open world. I just want to jump straight into being on a track somewhere, and that will matchmake in a kind of traditional matchmaking fashion. And then the drivatars, which is a really interesting system that the Forza series has had for a while, is it learns about the way that each person who plays any Forza game drive, and it tries to do an impression of them, basically, an AI impression of what they would drive like. So when you're playing, you'll see your friends' names from your friends list in a lot of your races, if they've ever played a Forza game of any kind, because it will be doing an impression of what that person should race like in the game's opinion. So I have actually raced you, Dan. Maybe we'll get into a race in a minute. Maybe I'll see if I can find you somewhere. Just getting my photography on here. I feel like I should be. I'm not a photographer. I'm not a natural photographer at all. I don't know what would look good here. Would it look good over here? Let's just take it like this.
Yeah, I can see you hunting for the right composition.
Yeah, and I don't know, it's just an example, so let's just go with that. Let's get into a cross-country race. Cross-country races are some of my favourites because they're the races that don't really take place on traditional tracks. They kind of go off-road and you have to smash things up. And there's a good chance we might see Dan here somewhere. Well, I can see Ben Gammon up ahead. Look, Gambo in 5th place. And Paul McCaskey there, who might be watching, you never know.
Hello, Paul.
Oh no.
Oh dear.
See, this is off-road, it's tricky. Luckily I've got the rewind function, so I can just rewind this all the way back.
Is there a limit on how much you can rewind?
I don't think there is. I think you can just do as much as you want. Also, you can't do that when you're playing multiplayer against real people. That would be really annoying for them.
A little bit jarring.
Yeah, you can see how these races, I mean, there's a loose sense of track here, but there's no actual track, which I find more enjoyable. These are the events that I seek out, and you do have a lot of choice. Like, you can choose whether you prefer, racing on the streets of towns and cities, racing on tracks, racing cross country, racing larger style in like desert sandy tracks. There's really a lot of choice in the event types, and kind of something for everyone, I guess, is what Forza Horizon brings to the table. Like, no matter what kind of racer you are, there's probably a lot of events in here that will appeal to you, and enough of them that you can progress through the game without having to do the ones you don't really want to do.
And do you think it's a good game for perhaps people who aren't into driving games or racing games? To that variety help make it a bit more inclusive, perhaps, and these kind of difficulty settings and things?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the accessibility options and the difficulty, flexibility, the variety, it's a great game for first timers or for gamers who maybe haven't got on with racing games in the past. I definitely, before Forza Horizon 4, wouldn't have considered myself much of a racing game fan. There have been racing games that I've liked, but Forza Horizon 4 really turned me around on the concept of them, and I'm glad that... Oh, no! Get away. I'm glad that that this is kind of continuing that tradition of being hyper accessible, hyper flexible, and just great fun to play, and good to look at.
And I assume there's other kind of beyond just kind of the racing. There's like a collectible kind of mechanics and lots of other kind of metagame type modes and things.
So there's loads of cars to collect, loads of levels to unlock, houses you can buy, customization options for clothing, all sorts of things you can get. I came third there, not my best, but I'll live with it. And yeah, it's the total package. Like, they've really refined this. You were in that race somewhere. You came ninth.
So it's not that accurate then.
And yeah, I just think it's a really good game and well worth checking out. So one of the best of 2021 so far, and it has my recommendation.
Nice.
That's someone's victory dance, and we're going to throw back to the studio. Thanks for joining me, Dan.
Thank you.
And we'll see you on a future Etch Play video. Take care.
Bye.
Hello and welcome back. You're still watching the Etch Play weekly live show with me, Adam Burt, and I promised you Taya Bilianina. Instead, I've got Benjoy. It's the the worst trade deal in history.
Sorry, folks. You're stuck with me.
Yeah, thank you for joining me though, Ben. Last minute, Taya's having some technical difficulties, so Ben has stepped in. He stepped into the breach. And we're going to chat about all the latest games industry news. Are you ready, Ben?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay, so our first news story is about the game we were just talking about there. Forza Horizon 5 has become the biggest Xbox Game Studios launch day in Xbox Game Studios history, boasting over 4.5 million players over the few days that it launched this week. Phil Spencer from Xbox took to Twitter to celebrate, revealing that the peak number of concurrent players was 3 times the highest ever achieved by Forza Horizon 4. So huge success for Playground Games. You just saw the game there, and yeah, it's fantastic. So they deserve every bit of that success, and big deal for Microsoft. I mean, this has basically become one of their biggest franchises over the last few years, quite quietly, and it's doing good numbers. So good for them. What do you reckon, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, it was highly anticipated. Forza Horizon 4 was great. We loved that game, so it's always great when a game comes out and it meets expectations. The problem you get with sometimes the games get so hyped up, it's going to be impossible for it to actually deliver what people want from it. So it's great that this one had high expectations and it's hit and possibly exceeded for a lot of people. And yeah, the concurrent players is insane. Like to be 3 times as good as Forza Horizon 4, which was not jabby by any means, and I think for them it's held up. I haven't seen anything really about people having tech issues. Maybe they have, and I've just missed it.
There have been a few.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's to be expected with a game launch of this size. I think they have had a few teething issues, shall we say, that I know they're working hard on.
Just great to see it doing well. I will be downloading it at some point. I'm just trying to find an opportune time that I don't take down my entire system because of how bad my internet at home is.
Yeah. Our next story is about Unity, the game engine. They have entered an agreement to acquire the virtual effects platform Weta Digital, who you might know from the Lord of the Rings films and Rise of the Planet of the Apes films. Basically anything with really good CGI, Weta were probably involved. So this is about their play to lean further into the metaverse, which is a hot topic recently in terms of 3D spaces being generated and inhabited by people rather than using web pages like we're used to. Weta was co-founded by Peter Jackson himself, the director of Lord of the Rings, and is responsible for the digital design animation for some of the world's biggest entertainment properties, including Lord of the Rings, as I mentioned, but they've also worked on Avengers and Game of Thrones. The deal is worth $1.62 billion and will see Unity gain Weta's pool of 275 staff, as well as dozens of digital design tools, thousands of assets, and Weta's bespoke data platform to help them build good-looking things for the metaverse and also for game devs, I guess, in the Unity library. What do you make of this, Ben?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, it's going to be for game devs in the Unity library. I think we are probably a way off the metaverse if we ever even get there. But yeah, it's exciting. I mean, even if you're not a fan of those films, which I'm not huge fans of them,
what?
Lord of the Rings, it's not my thing, but I can appreciate it looks
You
incredible.
really are terrible compared to Ty.
I know. I will be invited back. But I can appreciate how good they look. So if there's any way of scaling that to work in browsers, I guess if we're going metaverse where it's going to need to scale, it's going to need to work on mobile, it's going to need to work on browsers. So there's definitely going to be a lot of work to do that, because browsers and mobile are not really going to be set up to handle that as of yet. So there's going to be a lot of work involved in that, but it's exciting. I think, as I said, first and foremost, it's going to be exciting to see what impact that has on game devs, because I think that will come quicker. I think we'll notice that and see the benefit of that in games a lot sooner than we will anywhere else. But yeah, it sounds like an exciting acquisition. So, and yeah, some good Skrilla for everyone involved. 1.62 billion, no chump change.
Not to be sniffed at. The world of M&A continues unabated. Our next story is about the developer of Star Citizen, developer Cloud Imperium Games, and they've announced their new plans to open a huge studio in Manchester here in the UK, which would instantly make it, I think, one of the biggest in-person studios in the world, definitely one of the UK's largest development studios. The new office is set to open in May 2022 and rehouse the company's current 400-person team before quickly and dramatically expanding, is their words, over a 5-year plan that will see them grow to 700 people by 2023 and 1,000 in-person staff by 2026. Pretty bold statement of intent, I guess. Star Citizen is a game that there's been a lot of discourse around. It's in alpha, they've got some players, a lot of people questioning whether this game is ever going to come out, is it ever going to be released, because it's so huge in scale. But yeah, I mean, definitely a statement of intent from CIG to open a huge studio here in the UK and to have, you know, ambitions like that to basically almost triple their staff size in the next few years. What do you reckon, Ben?
Yeah, it's ambitious. I am, as is probably quite clear, I'm a northerner myself. So northeast, not the northwest like Manchester, but northern nonetheless. So for me, it's great to hear that that addition is going to be in the north of the country and kind of adding to the already strong northern game scene. You know, we see these pockets develop across the country, like Guildford is one of them, Leamington Spa is another one. So if we're starting to get those big hubs up in the north as well, it's going to generate a lot of jobs. So yeah, I'm all for it. I think it's going to be a difficult introduction. Just it depends how quickly they scale. Scaling at that pace is difficult, but it's definitely ambitious. As you said, it's a strong statement of intent, and yeah, I'm very happy to see the northern games scene growing and that people see the north as a viable place to not only put their business, but a business of that scale. So yeah, I'm happy and excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, we wish you luck, CIG, and if you are a games student in Manchester, maybe there will be a job for you after all. One of 1,000 coming soon to a building near you. Our last story this week then, and this is a shame because this is the one that Tyre was really interested in talking about, so you can just have to do your best Tyre impression.
gonna fluff this now. Thanks.
Yeah, Microsoft's Windows Store is finally, to quote The Verge, becoming more Steam-like for games, and what they mean by this is that Microsoft is going to allow Windows users to install PC games from the Microsoft Store or Xbox Game Pass for PC applications to any folder of their choice with unrestricted access. So the move will allow PC gamers to access the folders of games and modify them freely, which is the most critical thing here. It also makes things easier for people who like to move things around, like move between hard drives and stuff, but the big thing is, hey, Microsoft seems okay with mods now. You could just mod any of these games. So Microsoft has previously supported mods for certain titles in their own kind of specific Microsoft-y way, but this is going to really blow the doors wide open to allow anyone to just mess with those files on PC and do whatever they want with them, which is exciting for a lot of PC gamers. The mod scene is definitely an important part of PC gaming culture. The update is currently being tested internally at Microsoft, and the company hasn't publicly detailed these new features, although they did confirm them to reporters at The Verge. We're expecting the app to update soon, particularly as we're expecting Halo to launch on December 8th. It wouldn't be a surprise to see the new app launch shortly before or shortly after that on December 8th. So, Fake Tire, what do you make of this news story?
I'm definitely not going to be as insightful. I wouldn't have thought as Ty would have been on this, but I mean, it sounds, you know, any development that is made which makes life easier for players, I'm 100% behind, because we preach that a lot. We talk about it a lot. Like, we don't like when things are restrictive. So making it easier for gamers to put the game where they want, and like you said, the mods is a huge thing. Like, people love doing that. Some amazing things come out of mods. And I think we've talked about mods before on the show and kind of said, you know, if you open it up, like, it's only going to do your game good. So this isn't only good news for players. It's also good news for the developers as well, because it's amazing things come out of mods. It can generate more interest for games. Like, people who add mods into games can, you know, it attracts new players. It can bring old players back. So it sounds like a really positive step all round, and it's nice when like these come from larger corporations as well, because the smaller companies often are a little bit closer to the player bases, so you're more likely to see those kind of things come through, and the larger corporations are kind of not totally detached, but they're a bit more detached, and obviously they're a lot more corporately driven. But when anything comes out that's player focused, I'm fully behind it, and it sounds like a really positive step by Microsoft. So yeah, I'm sure a lot of PC gamers are going to be excited by this update.
Yeah, so far the reaction seems to be mostly disbelief. People just can't believe Microsoft would do this. But it is not the first sign that Microsoft is taking PC gaming more seriously. We've seen a number of titles launch simultaneously on Steam as well as on the Xbox Game Store recently. And Microsoft has talked a good game in their press conferences and in their news stories about wanting to really support PC as a platform as well as Xbox. So hopefully the update will land soon and everyone get to enjoy it. That's the end of our news for this week, but if you like games news and you're interested in it, you want to read more of our opinions, more things about what's going on in the industry, make sure you check out our website tomorrow. It's at etchuk.com/play. Every week we launch a roundup in written form, like text, like the old days, which basically shows off and discusses some of the latest games industry news. My camera has gone green for some reason. I don't know why. It might come back or it might not. Let's just get out of the show, shall we? Thanks for watching. Really appreciate you tuning in. Thank you to Alex Boucher for joining us for the discussion about events. Thank you to Tyre for trying to be here. And thanks to Ben Joy for stepping in at the last minute. I'm Adam Burt, and we'll see you right back here next week at the same time, 4 PM. Follow us now so you don't miss it. And we'll see you soon. Take care.